What's the best way you've seen someone rebel against school rules? No hats in school. In high school junior year, there was this one kid in my grade that was allowed to due to him having alopecia universalis, which is basically having rapid baldness. A new teacher wasn't aware that he was allowed to and asked him to take it off. The kid explained why he was able to, but the sub didn't believe him, forced him to take it off, and was being very cruel to him for wearing the hat. His lack of hair. The next day, everyone wore hats to school as a sort of rebellion against the teacher. She got really mad and started yelling at the students and said some nasty things. She got fired. I was at a private school that had rules about the length of boys' hair. One guy in particular always ignored the rule, and the administration would tell him to get a haircut every so often, but he never did. Eventually, when his hair got about down to his shoulders, the principal pulled him aside and told him his hair was twice the allowed length, and by next week it needed to be shortened by half. Monday rolls around and he comes in with half his head shaved, and the other side as long as ever. We were impressed by literal interpretation of the principal's request, but it still ended up with him getting a suspension for a week, and he had to shave the other side before he could come back. After the Columbine shooting, our school banned black trench coats. For the most part, nobody cared, except the mysteriously gothic trench coat kid. He had worn a trademark black trench coat every single day because it made him different. And then all of a sudden the school tells him he can't do that anymore, so the kid went out of his way to find, or make different colored trench coats and wore those instead. My favorite one was covered in duct tape, TLDR, Gothic Joseph and the Technicolor trench coat. After 9/11, my school made a rule where we had to wear our school IDs. They went overboard quick, handing out detention to anyone who didn't wear one. One kid had his ID blown up and put on a shirt. On the back it said, "Yes, I'm wearing my F-King ID." He got detention for not wearing it with the shirt. Last day of senior year, we started a food fight at lunch. And by food fight, I mean we drew angry faces on an orange and an apple, then faced them toward each other, made a big circle around them, and we all reacted like we were watching a fight. All the security guards ran to break up the fight, only to make their way to the middle of the circle to find two pieces of fruit sitting on the ground. Edit. Lots of comments about security guards in schools. In the USA it's just so common I don't even think about its bizarreness anymore. In many states here, schools not only have a security guard, but a police officer as well. A buddy of mine was caught messing with his phone during class. Back then, the school rules were that if you were caught, your phone was confiscated for an entire day, and you couldn't get it back until the next day. This was before smartphones, and the rules have changed since the 10 years that I graduated there. So, buddy hands in his phone, but doesn't seem too worried about it. He waits a couple of classes until lunch break, and asks me to come with him. He's gonna get his phone back. We go to the staff room, where the confiscated phones were held, and asks a teacher there if he could copy down a phone number into my phone so he could call his dad later that day. Teacher agrees, and gives him the phone. I hand him mine, and we wait for him to copy the number. When he's done, he gives me mine back, and sticks his own phone in his pocket. He was known as a bit of a joker, so when he jokingly said, "Welp, thanks a lot, see ya," the teacher immediately laughs, tells him to stop messing about and to give the phone back. Laughing and joking about being caught, he does, but not really. See, he had a second phone, exact same model, except this one was broken. Wouldn't charge anymore, he said, so, when he stuck his good phone in his pocket, it was right next to the broken one. When the teacher made him give back the phone, he just gave back the broken one. It was the best switcheroo I have ever seen in my time at that school. He was so fluent, so nonchalant about the whole thing. It was amazing to see. Back in the 1980s, there was one kid in my school was hardcore into the punk scene. Had a bright blue, 6 high, razor thin, stand-up straight mohawk. The principal gave him detention for being a distraction, etc. and his parting words that day were, "And tomorrow, no more blue mohawk." The next day the kid came in with the same mohawk, only bright pink. We had an awful Spanish teacher in middle school who collectively punished the class by making us write the same sentence 100 times over in detention. On one of these occasions, my friend and I asked her if we could type our detention in the computer lab. This was when computers in schools were a new thing, so we could improve our typing speed, and she said yes. Anyway, we didn't do much typing but did learn how to write a basic program that printed the same line 100 times over. Friend was told in high school by his guidance counselor not to waste his time applying to his dream school because he wouldn't get in. He got pissed off and went to the principal, who told him it was the counselor's job to give her best opinion, so he trusts whatever she says. He applied anyways, and got in. He took the acceptance letter, made a copy, and taped them to both the principal and counselor's door with "thanks for nothing" written on both. He didn't even go to that school, he couldn't afford it, but it was the principle of the matter. Last year our school fetched in a ban on backpacks and bags in general since they were apparently a safety hazard. 2 days later some guy in my year group comes in carrying his books and pencil case in a microwave. Dude made national news. One of my classmates got sent to the office for wearing gang colors because he has a Red Marine Corporation bandana tied to his backpack. The rest of the year he wore a pinstripe suit with vest and carried a fedora. Guy was wearing shoes against the uniform policy and was asked to put on shoes from lost property. He went around school barefoot all day. When I was in grade 7, our last class of the day, students would always bring in snacks. Our lunch shift was way too early in the day, so by the end of the school day we'd all be feeling hungry, and we were all told by our teacher that if we didn't have enough to share we couldn't eat in the classroom. One day, almost all of us brought in enough food to share, even with the students that didn't bring anything in. We even synchronized the times that we pulled all our food out. Our teacher was clueless. She had no idea what to tell us. There wasn't any school-wide, no food in classrooms rule, so she couldn't run to the principal. Finally she gave in to our malicious compliance and allowed us to share food for the rest of the period. My high school was always issuing new dress code rules for the girls. Mini skirts had to be longer than your arm, no tube tops, etc. One day, all the boys dressed in drag, breaking all the rules. No violation, because the dress code specified only girls. A kid was passing notes, and the teacher caught him and insisted he had to give the note so she could read it out loud. He ate the note. Had vending machines outside the buildings, but due to some hashcat vandalizing them, this understandably pissed the school board off. The machines were put off limits, but could not be powered down due to some kind of contractual obligation of constant availability. In an effort to combat that, faculty were posted at the machines during class changes to prevent purchases. But, thankfully, no one was posted at the machines during class time. Mind you, this is 97-99 era. We weren't happy, as that was our sole source of caffeine on campus. We decided to heck with that and made purchases during class. Me, being the lithe, tiny guy I was conscripted to be the buyer. While the teacher was either out of the room or indisposed, or let's be honest, intentionally distracted, I would collect cash and requests, 4 at a time, and hop out the emergency escape window that they had opted to not have an alarm on and walk 20 feet to the soda machine and make my purchase. This went on for some time until the drink companies lambasted the school board for not restocking their dwindling supplies. Allegedly, as per contract, they put 2 and 2 together and realized that purchases were still being made. Apparently I was not the only gopher and lifted the ban on my last year. This Josh kid I knew had to take AS, asked if he could go to the bathroom, and the teacher wouldn't allow him a hall pass in high school. Which is the dumbest effing thing ever invented anyway. So he got up, walked to the front of the room and s his pants in front of the class, then blamed the teacher for it. It's not really a rebellion against the rules, but a good friend of mine had a special talent to make teachers like him despite having no respect for the actual school system. He used to study on his own to ace the tests, rarely showed up to classes he didn't like, and still got perfect report cards with high praises from all the teachers. The height of it was where he convinced his homeroom teacher to come pick him up from the beach before an important test. He eventually went on to have a great military career, but if he ever gets into politics, I wouldn't be surprised if he somehow managed to convince everyone that world domination under his rule was their idea. Our school collectively hijacked an assembly by singing along to Journey's "Don't Stop Believing" after the teachers forgot to turn off autoplay on YouTube. Senior year, my school banned jackets. A friend was cold, wore his jacket to lunch, and the VP told him to take it off. Friend pulls out the student handbook and asked where it said he couldn't wear it. VP flips for a while and ends up showing him the or anything the administration seems disruptive clause. Friend rolls his eyes but takes off his coat. The next day, friend comes in with the same tweed sport coat the VP wore every day. Just after the Virginia Tech shooting, when I was in high school, the administration banned backpacks, messenger bags. Purses were okay, though. One guy shows up to school with a purse. They suspended him for 2 days. The next day, most of the guys showed up with purses carrying all of their things. They lifted the backpack ban. So we had this dude Kyle. His name is not Kyle, but he absolutely had Kyle energy, trademark. He looked like a typical low-income stoner kid. Long hair, ripped clothes, jeans, beat-up shoes, beanies and socks with weed stuff on them. Now Kyle was a peculiar kid who spent half his time in detention, rarely ever showed up to tests, and when he did, would just straight sleep through them. He was pretty rambunctious, kind of funny, but ultimately was one of the trouble children. He was a low flyer, as the assistant principal called him when we talked, since I was also a low flyer. It meant he got in trouble, but nothing serious like drugs or fighting, though everyone knew he was a pothead. One of my all-time favorite stories of Kyle was in our world history class. The teacher absolutely hated him. They always got into it, and honestly, the man would talk very patronizingly to Kyle and the dude snapped back. Our teacher said, "Get out now," and Kyle proceeded to go to the other side of the room from the door. When the teacher asked him what he was doing, he yelled, "Getting my backpack and getting out." There were kinda like cubbies for our bags by the windows, so Kyle grabs his S, packs it up, then straight gets it out the window. What follows is the teacher yelling, "What are you doing?" and Kyle screaming out, "I'm getting out," followed by him effing dolphin diving out the effing window. It was surreal. Kyle was suspended, came back a few weeks later, did some more S, suspended again, came back, was finally expelled. The dude is seemingly doing okay. Last time I Facebook stalked him. Works at a Chili's now, aha. The canteen stopped selling sachets of red sauce due to the mess some kids were making. My friend carried a huge bottle of red sauce in his bag for at least a month and provided illegal red sauce for the cost of 5p per squirt. Made a fortune. Vaping in school is an issue, and I would never recommend starting if you don't have a smoking problem. I am in high school but was addicted to cigarettes early on, so I swapped over. I go to a private school, so we have a great change room plus workout area with machines and everything. However, the change room started to get locked due to vaping kids, and detectors were put in. As a solution, after a workout, a bunch of friends and I would turn on all of the showers and strip down to only towels. If we heard the principal walk in to check, it was a big problem for a while. We would all drop our towels and hide the vapes, and yell at him, old and angry little Italian man, that he is a pervert and is creeping on underage male students. He stopped doing that. Edit. I'm actually so shocked this blew up. I literally joined Reddit 3 days ago and I have a silver. Absolute mad lads in here. Thanks so much. I had a friend in high school who would stand around on campus nonchalantly smoking cigarettes, and would bring beer to drink at break and lunch. He gave 0 FKs who saw him, and oddly enough he never got in trouble for it. He recently got out of prison. It wasn't a big defiant act or anything, but I loved it and it always stuck with me. One day in high school, we had a particularly hard snow. We were certain school would be cancelled, but, womp womp. No dice. No one was allowed to leave the building during lunch. But a bunch of kids said F it that day, and ran outside to have a big ol' snowball fight. We all watched as they had an awesome time, and a couple of randos joined in. I was too chicken-ass. They all got detention, but I know it was worth it. It was so simple and harmless, and I remember it almost 15 years later. Okay, so we need to have clear backpacks, right? This kid puts quite the vulgar image depicting the counselor on one of his notebooks and packs it against the edges of the pack. My daughters both went to a Catholic high school. My younger one had a bit of a wild streak. The girls were required to wear a skirt every day to school. My daughter did not care for this rule and wore her skirt around her head one day, since the dress code required the students to wear a skirt, just not wear. I was told that she was wearing spandex underneath. That's how my daughter got a new rule in her high school dress code. I had a teacher who got into a power struggle with every reasonably smart kid, so we tended not to try in her class. As a result, she began to grade the progress monitoring tool we used. This proved to me that the tool didn't matter. If it did, she would have graded it from the start instead of waiting until she realized she looked bad. So I began to fail every test I took on the platform. She was really angry at me and told me to call my parents, but my parents backed me because choosing to fail is not a violation of any rule. We hired a mariachi band to follow our dean around school for a day. Best senior prank. There was a presentation on vaping last year by some poor woman from an advocacy group or something. After every sentence, or whenever she paused, the whole assembly, all 300 kids in my grade, would give a massive standing ovation. We weren't stopped until we had done it like 15 times. In 5th grade I saw a kid punch another kid across the face during playtime and run away from school. They just let him go. Hey Joe, aren't you supposed to be in class? Yeah, and NPSP, one word. Doesn't look like much in text. But he said it such full acceptance and resolution that the teacher didn't follow up or say anything else. Just, okay, got it, you're not going. I'll move on and not waste any more time here. And they kept walking. Sometimes attitude is everything. Sometimes you can say a lot with a single word. I guess this counts. My school has this thing against wireless speakers headsets, but used something like that for its PA system, I assume, so it could be accessed anywhere in the school. I found a way to hack into said system with my phone, and later laptop, and would play random songs through the entire thing. USSR anthem, Never Gonna Give You Up. Just whatever came to mind. I was 100% obvious with how I did it and never got in trouble. Did it through junior and senior year. Teachers said boys need their shirts tucked in. Never said how much needs to be tucked in, so when one of my friends got told to tuck in his shirt, he stood still, used one finger, and tucked in a tiny portion of the back of his shirt into his pants, then walked off. Was later called to the office because they thought he was acting out and not obeying rules, but the kid's parents said that he followed the rule. It never said the whole shirt needs to be tucked in. So the principal, secretary, and teacher all have to let the kid off. The next day, the principal makes an announcement to the whole school that boys need to have their entire shirt tucked in the entire way. We laughed about it. I was in a Christian high school at the time. The day before winter break rolls around and I had packed a few Toblerone chocolate bars and some notes for the teachers I most appreciated, with the intention of leaving them as a Christmas gift. Before school, the principal made a public announcement that students were not to give any teachers any gifts unless we were going to give all teachers the same gift. This was obviously a bit of a problem since I couldn't exactly come back the next day with additional candy bars, so I marched into her office to address this issue. Upon entering the office, I made a show of opening a chocolate bar and breaking off exactly one piece and placing it on her desk. I told her that I was going to give her a full candy bar, but I now had to share her chocolate bar with other teachers that I didn't really care so much about anyways. That rule was quietly lifted. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to hear more of the best pose.